Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. It's 10 a.m. and you won't sell me a McChicken because lunch starts at 11? After that, Karen recognizes me from a job I stopped working at over a year ago. After that, oh, your name's not Karen? Not my problem. And after that, boss blocks my promotion, I block his job. Now Karen assured me if we can get 1,000 likes on this video, she won't demand any more McChickens for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And join as an official channel member today, and I'll give you a special shout out in our next video. It's 10 a.m. and you won't sell me a McChicken because lunch starts at 11? I work at a pretty well-known fast food establishment, and we get all kinds of entitled people all the time. This was the most memorable. So at the place I work, we only sell breakfast items until 11. This lady pulls up to order at around 10:30. Me: thank you for choosing You Know the Place. What can I get for you? Karen: yeah, can I get a McChicken? Me: sorry, unfortunately, we don't start serving lunch until 11 today. Is there anything else I can get for you? Karen: yeah, a McChicken. It's only 30 minutes. You can just make it for me. Me: I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to sell any lunch items until 11 exactly. We do have breakfast items with chicken in it if you'd like. Karen: see? You just told me you had chicken. Now make me the sandwich. Me: unfortunately, I cannot do that. She then drives up to the last window and demands to speak to my manager. So I go get her so she can just tell her the exact same thing. Karen: this jerk won't let me have my McChicken, and I'm in a hurry. So if you could please… Manager: excuse me, but we don't start lunch till 11, and I'm not going to pull out lunch items early just for you. So if you're not going to order, please pull through. Thank you. That's it. That's all she says and walks away. She never argues with customers, just tells them how it is. I then ask her if she'd like anything else, and she rolls her eyes. Yeah, I'm going to sit here till I get my food. So I tell my manager, and she's visibly irritated. She goes back to the window and tells her if she didn't move, she'd be forced to call the police. This is where things go south. You can't do that. I'm a paying customer. I have a right to be here. Get me my darn food, now! My manager doesn't say anything, just walks away. She then begins honking and continues to yell. She grabs the phone and walks back to the window so the lady could see. She dials 3 random numbers and pretends to call the police. Karen: you're lying. You wouldn't do that to a paying customer. My manager ignores her and acts like they picked up the phone. Manager: yes, there's a lady in the drive-thru and she's harassing my employees. And that was all it took for this lady to speed off. I will never get why people get so mad over food. Speaking of food, what's your favorite fast food place? Please leave a comment right now letting me know. Next we've got Karen recognizes me from a job I stopped working at over a year ago. One day after work, I stopped by the local pet superstore where all the pets go in order to get some more litter for my 2 cats. This particular location has a station where you can refill your own jugs with the store brand litter at a discount if you buy one of their containers first. I have Maine Coon mixes, so I buy in bulk when I can, and had 3 empty jugs in my cart and a 4th in my hand that I was refilling with litter. It's at this point that I hear a woman clear her throat. It was cold season, so a lot of people were doing that, and became vaguely aware of an older woman getting closer to me. I just moved closer to the bin so she could pass behind me if she needed to, finish up with the first jug, and move on to the second. This was apparently the wrong thing to do, as the woman huffs at me. Where are the poop scoops? I stop what I'm doing and glance around, thinking that maybe she had spoken to an employee that was stocking shelves or something. But no, she's scowling right at me. It was early in the afternoon in the middle of the week, so there weren't many employees in the store yet. Whatever, no big deal. I have a vague idea of where things are since they remodeled the store. I take a second to glance down the aisle I'm standing next to and am relieved to see litter boxes. I reflexively give her a customer service smile and gesture down the aisle. They're at the end of this aisle, against the wall. Karen doesn't bother to thank me as she moves closer to the aisle and looks down it before huffing again. "Those ones are too small. I need a big one." I realize at this point she means the dog shovel scoop things. I shrug and move on to my third litter container. Well, I only have cats, so I don't know where the dog stuff is now that they remodeled the store. You should probably ask an employee. "But you're an employee. I see you here all the time." I should probably point out that I work in an office and was dressed in black trousers, heels, and a green patterned blouse with a small purse hanging off the shoulder facing Karen. The employees here wear sneakers, jeans, and either a red or blue t-shirt with the company name and logo in big white letters on the front and back of the t-shirt. I have 2 large cats, so they go through litter pretty fast, so I'm here on an almost weekly basis, but I don't work here. "That's a lie. You gave my dog a bath, and I've seen you on the registers." It's at this point I'm a little shocked. I had worked in the grooming salon of this particular store for a couple of months, but that was well over a year ago. I'm sorry, I should clarify, I haven't worked for this company in over a year. They've remodeled the store since I was an employee, so I really don't know where they moved the dog shovels to. I believe they were at the front of the store when I worked here, but that area is now where they have the dog food. I finally see an employee approaching, probably drawn to Karen's steadily rising voice, and point him out to Karen, who promptly stomps over to him to complain. I had finished refilling my jugs, so I pushed my cart towards the registers, only catching part of Karen's complaints about my poor customer service before I tuned the rest out. Funny thing is, I would have helped her find where it had been moved to if she hadn't started talking to me like I was beneath her. Just because you're old, it doesn't give you the right to toss basic manners to the dogs. Are you team dogs or team cats? Please leave a comment letting me know and we'll see who wins. Next we've got, "Oh, your name's not Karen? Not my problem." So for background, I grew up in the hospitality industry with my parents, who, to those behind the scenes, shared the power of a general manager authority, although my dad was the one who holds that position, has for over 10 years now. I'm talking a total power couple, even though, yes, they had and still have their arguments just like any other couple, with my dad handling the money, numbers, etc., essentially the business side, and my mother handling the social aspect or the employees/guests. My mother is known widely throughout the hotel for no reason, or if you don't have a reason for not working, then I'm not taking your crap. You'd be surprised how often housekeepers just refuse to show up and work. But my father, on the other hand, is seen as the much more reasonable one, to a point at least. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen him livid enough to the point of yelling where the hotel is concerned. Seeing as some of my earliest memories of the hotel rooms, front desks, and the general drama that happens behind the scenes, you'd think I'd be immune, or at least tolerant to crap, but that's another story for another day. As I said, I grew up in this business and helped out a lot, taking shifts occasionally and running errands for whichever of my parents were on shift. But I never actually got paid the same as the other employees. By that, I mean my parents paid me from their own pay, which is fine. I hardly did the same amount of work they did in the same amount of time, which meant I wasn't on the payroll. Therefore, I wasn't technically an employee. Remember that, one of the few pieces that will come to play out in my favor. Okay. I also have to mention that my parents have managed more than one hotel in my lifetime, and for the past several years, the common thing is for them to live in the hotel they manage, given it's in a completely different state than their house. My house now, thank you. So they have their own room. I can access it when I'm visiting, because when I'm there, I pitch in and help out, which commonly requires me to have a master key. Yes, one that opens all the doors. They really don't look that much different from the guest keys, except for the markings or when the housekeepers wear them on lanyards, and the regular guest keys don't work after noon, which is the time you must be checked out, or you'll be charged for another day. One more piece to remember. There are 5 floors in total, but technically, the second floor is where guests can use a side door to access the parking lot and their rooms without going all the way from the lobby. It requires an active key card to work from outside. Another piece. I don't tell anyone else this, and typically only a few staff members are aware of who I am anyways, the manager's daughter, so it's not really obvious. On my last visit, I was given a master key the day after I got there and was told they'd call me if they needed my help. I'm typically an introvert and stay in my room playing video games and reading, sometimes wandering out to spend time with my parents, wearing jeans and a graphic tank top and flannel, nothing like what the clerks or employees should wear. I left my room with a book in hand, my phone and master key in my pockets, but you could really only see the outline of my phone, another piece to come into play. This is where the background truly ends and the story begins. I was going to head down to the lobby with my book and sit on the couches to read, to hang out, when my mother on her shift, she's a bookworm too, so we tend to read in silence together, when as soon as my door closed, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up and I could feel a disturbance in the force. Lo and behold, from behind me I hear the sound of a wild Karen. "Excuse me?" My first thought was, oh boy. My second thought was, how fast can I annoy her? Yeah, I'm an introvert, but that doesn't mean I am uncomfortable with drama or people. I just prefer to hibernate in the comfort of my living space. Big difference. In fact, on occasion, when confronted with, well, confrontation, I find I enjoy myself when I annoy them. I mean, I didn't ask for you to bother me, so that's your problem. I digress. This lady is what I classify as your stereotypical Karen. Seems put together on the outside, but on the inside is just a storm of entitlement and lack of empathy. I won't describe what she looks like, because then people from the hotel would know exactly who she is. Anyways, I turned to face her, where I had just been about to step away from my room door, replying with, "You're excused," which I know for a fact tends to tick people off. But to be fair, it's what one is supposed to say at one's dinner table in response. Yeah, we're not at a dinner table, but still. "You need to help me, right now." My third thought is, now where have I heard that one before? Oh right, this is Karen. No I don't, I'm just trying to go to the lobby. "Oh no you're not, you're going to help me." Okay, this is where I realized that I had two major options. A, get mad and lower myself to her level, or B, ride this out to the perfect I don't work here lady moment. While option A was tempting, I decided that I could hold off on reading for now. Fine, what do you need help with? "Well, you need to start doing your job and bring my bags out to my car." Whoa, hold up. The hotel employees do not do that. We weren't that big of a building or business to warrant bellboys, and we had luggage carts and elevators for that particular reason. As far as I know, guests tended to understand that. Until now. Fine. You know what? I'll go along with it. So I head with Karen to her room, which was 4 doors down from mine, and she shoves this large suitcase, I'm talking everything but the kitchen sink large, into my hands and carries this tiny bag instead. The suitcase does have a handle, but when I reach for it, Karen snaps at me. "No, I said to carry it out." "No, you didn't." Karen gaped at me for a moment before replying with, "Yes, I did, and do your job, and do not talk back to me. I'm a guest." So Karen is striding ahead of me by a few paces while I am somewhat struggling to carry this large suitcase, and by the time I get to the elevator, Karen is already standing beside it, where I set the bag down for a moment to catch my breath, because that was pretty much my exercise for the week. "Hurry up, or you're fired." Karen hops into the elevator, and by the time I'm able to pick up her suitcase, she's already heading down. So on the stairs, I simply push her suitcase down each flight, hoping that I'm already smashing a few breakables in the process. Yes, I was petty. Don't care. Karen is already out the side door by the time I reach the bottom with her suitcase. She didn't even notice that it had hit the bottom somewhat loudly. Before I pick it up, I check the time on my phone. 1:36 p.m. Karen was surely about to be charged for another day, or had already been. She hadn't been out of her room long enough to have met the 12 noon deadline, obviously. Therefore, her card would not work. Ah, karma. You show up just when I need you. So I walk over to the door with her suitcase in hand and open it, nearly throwing it out the door, and Karen screeches when I do. "You can't do that! I'm going to have your job for that, you useless jerk!" So, not really mad, I stare at Karen, seeing her rage beginning to rise, when I don't start begging for forgiveness and simply say, "You can't really take what I don't have to begin with." "What? What do you mean?" I take a small step back from the door, but I keep my body kinda leaned forward with my eyes locked on hers so she doesn't notice the moment. I would have called her lady in this next part if she hadn't yelled at me and called me names and useless. I don't work here, Karen. Thanks for staying, I say in a falsely cheery voice before I slam the door shut with all my might. The electronic lock clicks into place, thus leaving her outside. Did I forget to mention that she still had things in her room? Well, yeah, she was charged for another day, and even told my mother about the rude bellboy. I'm a girl and present as one, locking her out. My mother tried to explain to her that since she wasn't checked out or out of the room after 12, then she would be charged for another day, and that her key card was only programmed for the night she had paid for. Oh, and that we don't have bellboys. Karen eventually got her stuff, but still had to pay, and didn't get her security deposit back since she had apparently damaged the door frame to her room. All in all, bellboy 1 and wild Karen 0. Next we've got boss blocks my promotion, I block his job. For background, I work in a very competitive part of the service industry. It's a large enough community, but at the same time, it's small enough where someone somewhere in the industry knows you, so it's important to not burn bridges, as one day you may find yourself in a disadvantageous position. I was in my position for a good 3 years as middle management. No call-outs, never late, always stayed after to help my team out, worked on projects that belonged to my bosses, etc. Except for one day, which I had gotten in a car accident. I was working the night shift and it was raining. This is important later in the story, and was unable to go into work as my car was undrivable and I had to wait for a tow truck, insurance, and trying to find a ride late at night/early morning was very difficult. At the time, my director had been let go and there was a battle to see who would get his promotion. For hierarchy purposes, it's my director, my direct bosses all on the same level of authority, 3 of them, then me. One of the direct bosses, let's call him Jerk, decided he was getting the promotion and started shaking our department, restructuring projects, changing people's shifts, taking credit for other people's work. He was a real pain. About a few weeks of this, he had decided to switch me from morning shifts, which I had gotten due to my seniority in the team, into night shifts. I didn't make a stink because we were very shorthanded, also important, and the team needed help as we had newer members who had kids, and I understood how this could affect their life. Fast forward a few more weeks, and I get into the car accident which made me call out. This didn't sit well with him, as I had made the team suffer because of my irresponsibility. What? And I didn't think much of it since I knew it was stressful and people tend to say things they don't mean under stress. Soon after that, I met some higher-ups from another department. They offered me a job in a new venture the business was exploring. I was a good candidate because of my experience and work traits. Of course I agreed, as this would be a promotion in position and salary. Plus, my network of contacts would put me in a position to grow even further. I went through a series of interviews, 3 in total, and I was given the opportunity to take the position. I signed my paperwork and shook the hand. A couple of days later, HR called me saying the position was rescinded and that it shouldn't come as a surprise. I was shocked and asked for a meeting to understand the decision. Cue the day of the meeting. I walked in and HR is sitting in the meeting room with Jerk. After the cordialities, Jerk explains that he blocked my promotion because I had attendance issues, which I had 1 call out due to my accident, and HR chimed in saying this shouldn't deter me from applying again in 6 months. Okay. I accepted defeat because I still needed my job and I didn't want to paint a target on my back. A couple of days later, a friend of mine that worked close to Jerk had told me Jerk had made the comment that he didn't want to let me go because I would leave the night shift uncovered and no one would easily accept that shift. I was furious, but decided to not act on it. As I explained earlier, it's a small enough business. A few months later, the competition opened up close enough that a few people left to go there. I was one of them. I was hired by an amazing boss who I am still friends with years after. He offered me a great position and a huge raise in salary. For hierarchy purposes, it was my boss, then me, and my counterpart, then our assistants. I had heard through the grapevine that Jerk had gotten rejected from the director position and was leaving the company. About a week or so later, I was looking at new hires with my boss to fill out my counterpart position. My boss calls me and says, "Hey look, this guy comes from the company you came from." To my delight, I saw Jerk's name. I had been hiring people to the assistant positions from previous company, so I guess Jerk thought he was next. I told my boss the story about Jerk and how he blocked my promotion. All my boss said was, "Thank you, but no thank you." We didn't even give him an interview. Looking back at it, we should have given him the interview and just said no. It would have made it sweeter. Like I said before, don't burn bridges if your industry is small. Next we've got, I want that $200 item for $50. While the topic of Karens is on my mind, I'll tell my biggest Karen story so far. The whole thing took place a few months ago when I was working an evening shift. While I'm on register, Karen comes up with a few items. This Karen is probably in her 50s, with dyed black hair and eyes that hate the world. I'm processing her items as she asks, "Hey, do you think that piece of furniture out there will fit in my vehicle? It's that black one out there with the drawers. I drive an Arcadia." Now that's just so helpful. There's over 100 pieces of furniture out there, and at least 20 are black, and more than one have drawers. It doesn't help that I had a pillar and other furniture obstructing my view, and I cannot leave my register when I'm signed on, or when a transaction is in progress. So, not knowing the dimensions of the furniture, and not knowing what the heck an Arcadia is, I just decide to be safe, and say that I personally do not know if the piece would fit in her vehicle, and explain why. She's not happy with my answer, and she huffs. She sees one of my managers walk by and says, "Oh, well, he looks like he would know." I admittedly freeze and repeat what I said. Yes, I know I messed up in that moment, but I don't feel nearly as bad, considering the rest of the story. I don't remember what form of payment she used for this transaction, but I'm fairly certain it wasn't a check. I leave my register to work on some other projects, since the lines are pretty non-existent in that moment, but I notice that Karen is still shopping at the front. Must have put her bags in the vehicle, and she's doing some more shopping. 20 minutes later, I get called up to the front for a furniture carryout, and sure enough, when I get up there, Karen is buying that piece of furniture with a check. I stand near the register, waiting and ensuring the payment of about $180 or so was actually given, and then I let Karen point me to which piece it was. It's, at most, a 1.5 foot by 5 foot cabinet of drawers on wheels. Pretty small. I don't even need my two-wheeler, so I leave it behind. I ask Karen to pull her vehicle up to the doors, and I'll load the piece into her vehicle. She pulls out. I wheel the piece out, and as I'm lifting it up, she suddenly says, "It's cracked." I pause and look closely, and yeah, it is. It's a thin, 1.5 inch long streak in the wood where it must have been warped or messed up somehow. Considering it has a blemish, and her reaction, I set the piece down and ask, "I take it you don't want it anymore?" And she just says, "Well, of course not. It's cracked. It's defective. It's broken. It shouldn't have even been on the floor in the first place. Do you guys not have any kind of quality control here?" We head back inside to the register where she purchased the item. Now, policy states that we cannot do refunds for check purchases within 10 days of the purchase. This is done to allow the banks enough time to process the check. The cashier states this. Karen gets upset. The cashier calls for a manager. The assistant manager shows up. Karen is still upset. Assistant manager is still pretty new at the whole assistant manager thing, and so she calls the store manager up. This is where it gets fun. Karen's ranting about quality control and the blemish and says she would only pay $50 for it at most. Remember, this piece was sold to her for $180, which is already a 30% discount on the original price. And she's saying a small scratch on the side of the piece justifies it being marked down that much. She says she wants it for $50 or she wants her check back. When she says this, the cashier and I just look wide-eyed at each other, silently saying, "Is she serious?" There's no way store manager is gonna let that slide. And sure enough, he didn't. I was walking away to work on other stuff since I wasn't needed, but I still heard store manager being short with Karen, making a one-time exception and giving her check back after he saw her ID to ensure it was actually her. Apparently, she called the store the next day to complain some more, saying she waited 45 minutes before someone showed up to help get the furniture out to her car. Ha, no. I was right there waiting for the transaction to complete. Store manager even confirmed that on the security cameras. And the best part? A different customer bought the same piece of furniture for the $180 later that week. Had no issues with it. Do people not have anything better to do with their lives? Do you think Karen was being too picky with the furniture? Or do you think she was right to refuse it? Please leave a comment letting me know. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day, Star Dream Screams, Silver Talon, and Dark Shadow. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many reads as you can in the comments below, and please listen to my playlist every night when you go to sleep.